But welcome to the Q&A. I have some questions that have been submitted, and we'll just jump right into it. So, first question is, I've noticed that I partake in a guided meditation, that if I partake in a guided meditation, I'm much more likely to relax, be still, and enjoy that beautiful silence. However, when I'm in an unguided meditation, I'm more likely to be confronted with uncomfortable emotions. My question to you all is whether you feel it is more productive to always point your awareness to these emotions when they arise, or whether sometimes it is better to just focus on your breath and not pay so much attention to the emotion. I think I know which is the quickest path to 24/7 enlightenment, but I'm interested to know what you think and feel about it. I feel my mind is concerned that I'll spend the rest of my days focusing on one emotion after another rather than enjoying blissful silence. Good first question. Well, ironically, the question is what's interrupting your blissful silence right now? Right? And then said, I'll spend the rest of my days focusing on one emotion after another rather than enjoying the blissful silence of now. Uh, so that thought or that worry is in future. Yeah, it's like, oh, but am I going to have to spend, all of my days like dealing with all this negative stuff I've got buried in me? That's future. That's not now. Now is this. Now is whatever you're feeling now, which in that moment sounds like there may be a bit of doubt or confusion or curiosity kind of all mixed together. So that's where you're to be present with. It's that emotion. So, yeah, to the guided and unguided, guided meditations are a beautiful place to try and to practice, and it's a good place to start to have practices of your own to use. I do believe that silent meditation, however, is the most advanced form of meditation because there's no distraction. It's just you, you sitting with yourself. And silence is a powerful mirror, it's a powerful reflector. When we have somebody guiding us, it's kind of nice. It takes that responsibility of having to guide ourselves. We just have to listen, just go with whatever they're telling us to do. And there's nothing to think about, nothing to contemplate. You just keep following whatever they say, which is, yeah, beautiful and powerful and has its purpose. The next step in meditation mastery is, can you trust yourself to guide? Do you need someone else to guide you at all times? Can you become familiar enough with the practices to hold them without being reminded, without being told what to do, how to do it? And yeah, it's not easy, but it's also, the harder these, let's say, for example, they mentioned they find that when they're being by themselves in a silent meditation, more intense emotions come up. Now, whether to go into those or to kind of steer away from them, it's really up to you. You get to decide, right? There isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer there. If you choose to avoid it, though, it's going to still be there, right? Like whenever we choose to avoid something within ourselves, it's sort of like we're sweeping it back under the rug. And you have a right to do that if you want. But know that at some point you're going to have to face it. Especially if you're seeking 24/7 enlightenment, you have to face whatever it is you're running away from at some point. It doesn't have to be right now, but it has to be right now at some point. So you have to know for yourself, when you're ready, I guess. For me too, like I was kind of just ready to be done with this pain and suffering and drama, so I just kind of dove into it. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go into it. I'm going to be with it. And when it's really heavy, one of the most powerful anchors to have when you're in a really heavy emotion is breathing. Use breathing as your anchor. Just hold on to that breath, so to speak, right? Just, okay, I know I'm breathing in and out. And then the emotion is there. And it, so much of this, like, so you're meditating and all of a sudden you become aware of these really intense emotions somewhere inside you or in the background. Focus on your breath. But that's the beauty of when you're by yourself and you're not being guided. You have the freedom to really go into that emotion and to release it. Release it. Let it out. Experience it. And oftentimes if it's a really heavy emotion, this does involve crying. I know as for me as a male, I was very hesitant to cry, especially early on. But it's not even about crying. It's just about like really allowing yourself to feel, get out of the way, and let the emotion just come out. It's like opening the floodgates. Because we've been bottling it up and holding it. And then you realize you're holding it, you realize it's there, you're like, oh, what's that? And then you just kind of open it and let it do that, and then it comes out. But the beauty of doing that is there's tremendous healing in it. There's tremendous healing when we allow ourselves to feel things that we have deep inside of us that we've been resisting or running away from or distracting ourselves from. We really want to get rid of it. We have to go into it. We have to breathe into it. We have to acknowledge that it's there and not pretend like it's not there. Right? Denying the truth just it doesn't heal anything. Yeah? It just sweeps it back under the rug and then it comes back later. But as to when you feel like you're ready to do that, that's up to you. But do know the mind is going to do everything that it can to convince you that you're never ready. Because as long as you're never ready, you'll never move beyond this. And the mind will have that much more power over you. But I'm a big advocate of silent, unguided meditation. Once an individual has a few practices in their pocket to use as like a safety net when you really get pulled into a story or emotion or pain, use your safety nets, use your life jacket, as I like to call it too, right? Conscious breathing, inner body awareness. I'm going to be sharing another one this week. Use these techniques I'm sharing every week as your anchors so that you can not only go deep into your emotion, but you also have an anchor to keep you safe, to not like just get swept away. So that's a good first question. Make sure I got everything in it. That when you mention, I think I know which is the quickest path to 24/7 enlightenment. The quickest path to 24/7 enlightenment is an interesting statement. The quickest path is this moment, right now. Just anchoring in this moment, now. How are you feeling in this moment? What thoughts are happening in this moment? What questions are happening in this moment? Just constantly listening to the present moment. That's the quickest way. But yeah, and then when you catch yourself worrying about, am I gonna have to deal with all this negativity for like days on end? That's future. All you need to focus on is what you're feeling now, and then now, and then now. And the more you do that, the beauty of it too is when you really bring your presence into these emotions, the heavy ones especially, you're healing, which means that you're working on them on a level where they're not going to come back once you've healed them. That's the whole point. So once you really confront it, you finally can be free of it and not be carrying it around anymore, somewhere deep inside you. It's exhausting to carry these types of stories and emotions and pains and unhealed wounds of our past. Everybody has wounds, by the way. Everyone. So just focus on this moment. And every time you do, you're actually investing in more peaceful and less negative emotions of the future. But the mind loves to operate in future and in past. You have to be very alert to that. When is the mind operating too much in future? Like the worry of, oh, am I going to have to deal with this forever? No, that's future. Drop it. Back to now. All right. To the second question. I notice my pattern in judging others. If I am interested in what they are saying, I stay with my attention and body. If I am not interested, or in disagreement, or they talk too long, I tend to leave physically, or become irritated and tensed or impatient. Lately, I am using some techniques as thank you for being my practice. I wish you love, happiness, and laughter, or bow to them with namaste to remind myself that they are one, and following Thich Nhat Hanh's I am here listening to allow you to unburden. So these are all beautiful affirmations. I am creating a self-image that I am not identified with my thoughts, ego. I am using some techniques and yet I continue to feel resistance. Any reflections to it? Right. Or whenever we experience resistance, that's a moment of teaching, regardless of who it's coming from or where it's coming from. Whenever we're experiencing resistance, we're being taught a lesson. So, for example, if I found myself talking to someone and I felt like you had mentioned, you just weren't interested in what they were saying, or you disagreed with what they were saying, or they were talking and not letting you talk at all. We've all been there. But what's more important than what's happening in front of you is what's happening within you. So, what the first thing to recognize before you choose to walk away or you choose to stay is listen to what you're experiencing. If you notice there's impatience, if you notice there's judgment or resistance, that is more important. So you recognize that, you go, oh, okay, I'm resisting this person right now, or I'm resisting the situation right now, or I'm resisting the present moment right now. Okay. Bring awareness to that rather than justifying the resistance from what's happening on the outside. Only look at the fact there's resistance on the inside first. That's where the lesson is. The more you do this, the more you can release this judgment, this inability to accept them as they are in that moment, regardless of what expectations we have of what they should be acting like, or what they should be saying, or what they should be agreeing with instead of disagreeing with. And that's where we make it a spiritual practice. One of, I think, the fundamental patterns that we tend to carry, we run away from resistance. When we feel resistance, we want to run away from it. And sometimes, you may be involved with around somebody who's operating in a lot of intensity, and you do decide to remove yourself. It's okay. Before you do that, Notice how you're feeling and see if you can remove yourself from a place of acceptance rather than a place of resistance. If you remove yourself because you're irritated, that's a reactive pattern. That's actually a pattern of the ego. If you remove yourself out of acceptance, there will be a peace, there will be a calm, there won't be any irritation, and yet you can still decide to say, okay, this is too much for me. I'm going to and then just leave the conversation or you will do whatever. That's like what's called a high quality no. But our ego mind would love to say that all of our reactive no's are actually high quality no's, but this is not true because we feel resistance. Whenever there's resistance, it's not a high quality no. It's a medium quality or a low quality no. And so this is something to practice. And that's why when when you find yourself in front of someone that you're like you're disagreeing with or you're just not interested in their topic, right? They're talking about something you just don't care about. I don't know, politics or sports or something that's just not you're not feeling in that moment. Well, listen to them on a deeper level. You can listen to them beyond what they're saying too. Like they may be talking about one thing, but if you really listen to them, you can hear there's something else that they're saying. They're saying something like along the lines of like, I just need attention. I just need your presence. I need somebody's presence. And you can then you have an opportunity to give them something divine. And it doesn't matter what they're saying. It doesn't matter if they're completely, disagreeable and trying to shatter every all of your ideas and beliefs. It doesn't matter because what's more important is that you're just being present for yourself and for them. And when you do that, there's no resistance to them being there. There's no resistance to whatever they're saying or not saying. There's no feeling of tenseness or constriction because you're just allowing them and allowing yourself to be as it is. So a very powerful practice, and it's something you just have to keep doing, keep working on. It can come in many shapes and sizes, right? Many different types. I mean, it could be right now, in the comments of the live talk, or in some other post on Facebook. You might not even be physical interaction. It might be a conversation on a thread in social media, or conversation on Zoom, or someone you run into at a family reunion. Or I mean, there's so many possibilities. But the point here is, it can be spiritual practice. Everything can be spiritual practice. And anytime we feel resistance, there's opportunity for spiritual practice. So, but I have noticed, oftentimes, a part of us wants to run away from our resistance because it feels justified, and it's like, yeah, they're wrong. They're the ones that are the reason I'm suffering. And again, anytime we point at someone else as the reason we're suffering, we need to point it back at ourselves, because the truth is, at the end of the day, and at the beginning of the day, we are the reasons for our own suffering. Our perceptions, our interpretations, our assumptions, our perspective is the source of our suffering, not anything on the outside. That's what like Eckhart means when he says, what is the wording? Nothing is bad until you label it as so, until you think about it. Right? Nothing is good or bad until you until you label it as good or bad. Otherwise, it just is. No problem at all. No reason to suffer at all. But then the mind comes in and it's like, yeah, but listen to this craziness, listen to this story. Let me just tell you what happened, and then you understand why I'm upset or why I'm burning up. No, mind. If you really want to transcend suffering, you have to transcend the stories. Drop the stories. There is no justified reason for suffering in this moment. The mind's not going to like that. The ego is not going to like that. The ego wants to feel justified in its pain. That's why it maintains itself. That's why it's so hard to let go of. Some part of us likes it, likes the drama, it likes the resistance. So if that's there, just be aware of it. Oh, Eileen says, I think for me, I struggled with guided meditation at first and staying present in it. But now I've got it with the present practice, with present practice. So now learning that next step in present practice to be able to do myself without guidance, especially as it relates to inner body meditation. I've not yet been successful with that practice alone, but with guidance, it takes my mind out of the equation and I experience success. Thank you for discussing that, and I'm confident I'll be in a deeper practice. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And remember, inner body awareness, just do it now. You can always do it now. You just got to remember to do it. You have to remember to go, oh yeah, inner body. Okay. And then go into it. Really, you don't have to think about it. You don't have to tell yourself, okay, I'm going to feel my feet. Okay, I'm going to feel my legs. Okay, I'm going to feel my arms and my head, all that. You just do it. But perhaps just doing it doesn't work. And in that case, you can use the mental guiding of yourself to feel it. But eventually, you do want to get to a point where you don't need to tell yourself to go into inner body. You're just, as soon as you realize you're not in it, just go back into it. Oh, okay, feeling good. All right, we have another question. I see your question, Joy, and that's a good one. But I'm going to actually answer this last one here on the group thing. If you want to ask that one for next week, I could answer that next week. All right, so the last question for today is, and before I read it, inner body, everybody, slow down, connect, feel your feet, feel your hands, feel your present moment. I started to notice over the last few days that a lot of strong emotions are arising. I don't know what they are, and I've even skipped my morning meditation for the first time in a couple of weeks because I just don't want to deal with them. I've been here before many times, and this is when I start falling asleep again. It's just easier to not deal with these emotions, although I know I suffer more for being asleep. Days, weeks, or even months may go by until the suffering becomes too much and I begin practicing again. There's a lot of fear in me at the moment, and the heaviness in my chest. The fear is that I'll slip right back into ego like I've done so many times before. The heaviness is simply a manifestation of that fear, I believe. Beautiful. Well, here's the ironic thing about it. The fear is that I'll slip right back into ego like I've done so many times before. The fear of slipping back into the ego is the ego. You see, that's the irony. The fear of being in suffering is what's keeping you stuck in the suffering right now. Because fear is ego. It feels real. Fear feels real. That's why it's so heavy. That's why it's so intense. But a big part of awakening and realization is recognizing that what feels real is an illusion. It is not real. And when you know that something that is not real is actually not real, you're free from it. It no longer has any weight. It has no power over you. If in a sense you can almost laugh at it. But I also recognize when you're in it, it's not easy to say, and it's almost not fair to say that your suffering or your fear is an illusion, because it certainly doesn't feel that way when you're in it. But really getting out of it is recognizing the truth. Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God, says A Course in Miracles. Nothing unreal exists. Fear is an unreal thing. It does not actually exist. But if we believe it to exist, then we experience it as being real and we suffer. So You mentioned I've been here before many times, and this is when I started falling asleep again. Well, that's beautiful awareness. The fact that you're aware you've been here many times and that you know you fall asleep when you fall into this means you're not going to fall asleep if you stay alert to the fear that's coming up right now, or that came up when you asked this question, right? Because also, what I hear in this is future. You're worried about how are you going to deal with this heavy emotion in some future moment? Deal with it now. Just get it done. It's like when you're a kid and you want to go down this giant water slide, or jump off a big diving board, and you're up there and you're like, oh man, this is a lot higher than I realized. It's a bit scary, and you got to work up your confidence, but eventually you decide, okay, I'm gonna jump into the water. And you do, and it happens really fast, and the next thing you know, it's over. You're like, wow, that wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. And that's actually true for these intense emotions. You heal, you work through them, and you heal through them a lot quicker than the mind would like you to believe. If it can convince you that it's just too much and it's not worth it, it will then maintain its power. If it can't convince you anymore, then it will start to lose its power, which is so much what awakening is: taking the power back, taking the power away from the mind, away from our mental selves. So you found that you were skipping morning meditation. There's a bit of avoidance to really being with the strong emotions. Okay, well then be with that. Be with the avoidance emotion first before going into that other emotion. Just be with the avoidance emotion, because that is your present moment motion, and that's what it is. No judging it, but just recognizing it. Oh, okay, there's a part of me that does not want to sit with this thing. Okay, be with that. Then days, weeks, or even months may go by until the suffering becomes too much and I begin practicing again. Yeah, I've been there too. I've been there so many times that finally, I don't know how or why, something clicked in my head that said, "Okay, Ryan, that's enough. That's enough going through this cycle. Let's just put it down once and for all." Which means hold on to the practice once and for all. Yeah, make the practice life 24/7. And you can choose to let the practice go again. So that's the beauty of our world. You have free will. Yeah. If you feel con- confined, or you don't, oftentimes we really resist and we rebel towards what we're told we're supposed to do. We're like, oh, screw that. I'm going to do the opposite. I don't know why we're like that, but we're like that. And if that's the case, okay, then that will happen. You have the freedom to choose that, but also recognize you are choosing suffering in that moment. The more you can recognize, oh shit, yeah, I am choosing suffering every time I run away from this practice, every time I run away from the discomfort. Okay, now you have a choice to be with it, to not run away. And it's easier said than done. Don't get me wrong. I get that. Um, but the reward behind it, the freedom, the relief, the relief behind it is so powerful, and so it feels so good. Oh my gosh. I, some of the most powerful realizations and moments of like euphoria and bliss came right after I went into these deeply uncomfortable forms of suffering that were deep inside me. Even to the point where when I first started realizing that, I started looking for them. I was like, ooh, I wanted to find more, like gold nuggets of euphoria. So after I started to realize, like when I brought my presence into these things and felt tremendous relief and just, ah, it's just, I can't even describe. I actually, my perception of them being there changed a lot. I no longer feared them. I actually became excited of them. Ooh, here's another one. Because yeah, honestly, the gifts behind those really strong emotions are indescribable. It is so powerful and so beautiful. So enjoy, but also respect your pace. If you need to let go of the practice and come back, and let go of the practice and come back, fine. Okay, you do you. I'll be here doing the practice, and if you want to run off and come back, I'll be here. It's up to you. I know for me though, I just want to stay here. I've run away and come back to enough times. I don't want it anymore. I don't want the suffering anymore. So beautiful questions. Thank you. Uh, Thank you everyone for being here and listening. And thank you to the ones watching the recording. I recognize you too. Thank you. Enjoy your day, enjoy your practice throughout the week. Today, I have a bit of a busy schedule. I may be a little delayed on releasing the weekly unit with the practices and such. But I ask you just to be in your practice, and it will be released as soon as life allows me to, which may be like later on Sunday night. But yeah, so thanks for being here. Just keep doing your best. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. Thank you.